I want to congratulate newly approved Chief Justice Cindy Blake. Paul, you've been approved for about 3 hours now. How you doing on the job? You messing up yet? Okay. We're going to start this hearing. My name is Chauncey. I'm a host counselor, and I'm going to read a letter dated October 23rd, 2024. The Executive Council. Dear councils, I am pleased to nominate Chauncey B. Wood to the position of Associate Justice of the Appeals. I submit this nomination to the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Sincerely, Mara T. Healy. T's for I never asked. Okay. We're gonna start with you. Yes. Going around the room introducing all your friends and family and colleagues and whatever other stragglers came in.
Sure. So my father, Charles Wood, my stepmother, Margaret Bacon.
Congratulations. You too.
My wife, Lisa Kavanaugh, right here, CPCS. My sister, Carolyn Wood. These are members of my firm. More members of my firm over there, an alumna of my firm who will be speaking, Meredith Shee, the Honorable David Lowy back here, who will be my first speaker, and Ms. Dembitzer, sort of like my boss at CPCS, my good friends over there, Jeff Kleiman and Emily. Is that everybody? So, and I'm very lucky to have the new Chief Justice, Amy Blake here, as well as the members of the governor's staff.
I'm just going to introduce the councils that are present: Councilor Ayala, Councilor Dunn, Councilor Apollo, Councilor Jacobs, and Councilor Demand. All right. We're going to call you first witness, the Honorable David Lowy, retired. Thank you. Let's not make this like one of your decisions that goes on for 17,000 pages. Well, I managed to get for a couple of them. I'm still working.
Like Attorney Wood presentations to the court, it'll be cogent, it'll be effective, and it will recognize the importance of everyone else who needs to be speaking.
Well, you know what the most important law you folks have to tell, right? Law of revenue.
Counselor.
Okay, you take as much time as you want.
I will be brief, but it's really an honor for me to be before this body again. I testified countless times before this body, and I've had 3 hearings before it. And every time it has been a pleasure. I just saw in my peripheral vision, Councilor Ayala, the first voted to me in 1997. And I wish that the public had an opportunity to appreciate the awesome responsibility that the Governor's Council has and the seriousness with which you take that awesome responsibility. It's really a testament to a system that we have governor's counselors who recognize the obligation and carry it out. The amount of time and effort that goes into every nomination is really remarkable. I think people would be shocked at the amount of time and assiduousness and commitment that each council makes to every nomination. So as far as Attorney Wood is concerned, he is a tremendous lawyer. He's a beautiful writer. His arguments before the Supreme Judicial Court were always on message. He answered the questions, not like you turn on the TV and watch Meet the Press, where the the guests will answer whatever, question they want to answer rather than the one that's posed. He was always, somebody who, when he was arguing before the court, you could completely trust his research, and you could completely, trust his, advocacy. But I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the 1 month I spent with him in Salem, trying a first-degree murder case. Because over the course of the month, you get to know someone. And you have an opportunity to be able to get a feel for somebody's intelligence and somebody's level of preparation. But way more important than that, his integrity shown through every single day. And whenever the attorneys might be arguing before the court and maybe drift off message, would bring the issue right there. And the alacrity with which he would grasp the issues was just amazing. Let me close my remarks with a couple of comments about his commitment to the law. We all, I hope, understand and recognize the importance of the role of a criminal defense lawyer in not only affirming the constitutional rights of the particular defendant, but the reality is that criminal defense lawyers protect and enhance all of our liberty. They keep the government honest. They put the government to its burden of proof. And Attorney Wood recognized that solemn responsibility brilliantly. But he did more than that. With his amicus work and some of the motions for neutrality, he has helped move the law in this Commonwealth in important ways. Those of us who are involved in criminal law recognize the importance of case of Commonwealth versus Atchison, where there's an issue of who is the first aggressor, an issue of defense, and specific instances of conduct of the victim's history of violence are now admissible, helping resolve self-defense cases in a fair way. Just had a very important case, accomplished Rinaldi, that dealt with Dalbert Lanigan hearings, expert witness testimony that's constantly cited and so important to make sure that gatekeeper reliability is handled in a way that's fair to everyone before the court. Because when you're dealing with expert testimony, sometimes that expert testimony can overwhelm a jury if gatekeeper reliability isn't taken seriously. And then, my goodness, his involvement in Commonwealth versus Long, where there was a recognition that Commonwealth versus law just wasn't enough to make sure that we could take into account some of the perniciousness that flows from stops of Black people and people of color. And when there's a challenge to a pretext based on race, that as sublime as Chief Justice Ireland's drafting of law was, it just wasn't able to address the issues of racial profiling and discrimination that manifests itself all too often in motor vehicles. So I close by telling you that we could not do that for our appeals court, and that the people of Commonwealth, Chief Justice Blake, will be great news should we decide to confirm that very important nomination
Thank you, Justice Sloan. Council Devaney.
Thank you. How nice to see you. You know I'm your biggest fan. I voted for you 23 years ago, and I'm just saying it. You look great. And I voted twice, and my friend votes. And I just want to thank you for all your service. And I'm still trying to get people who can do it with the authority to change that 70, because it's crazy. I mean, if you can be a recall judge at 75, but you have to retire at 70, tell me how that makes sense. Doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, having said that, now, how many years have you held this young?
Oh, I would say, 10 maybe. I have to admit, I used a lot of him before I knew him. He has a reputation, his car is one of the leaders of somebody you can go to, for advice and counsel to an attorney. And I saw the way he interacted with the prosecutor in the case, Gene Curran, when we were together for a month, and it was never personal with him, it was never about him, and he showed to the prosecution team was something that I couldn't help but notice that he did.
What would you say, and it's difficult to say one attribute that you bring to that?
The love of the law. He loves the law, and I think that's why we saw some of the most important cases of the last 5 years. Actually, goes back a long time, but some of the most important cases we've seen in the last 5-10 years have Chauncey Wood.
With his resume was remarkable, but I want to tell you what's remarkable. People that attended today, you know the process. We vote in public assembly, and the district counselor gives us the date and the time. Well, it was changed just a few days ago. You got all of these people at that late time with a change of time and date. And you got you. I just can't believe this, and I want to thank you all for coming, and it's so well deserved. And I'm so happy to see you, and thank you for coming. There's no words to say how much your testimony means a lot, and what an honor for you to be here to speak for this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I just want to say, Your Honor, I have seen you since you retired, and want to thank you for this, which was remarkable for us. And, I wish you were still on, but thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, Counselor. I very much appreciate that. And I did enjoy that once you did.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
About the
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Justice Sloan. The next witness is Attorney Meredith Sheep. Am I saying that right? Special Assistant to Chief Justice Kimberly Budd. That sounds like a lot of work.
Be correct. Good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. It's a tough act to follow. Certainly don't have the resume or the familiarity with all of you as the first speaker, but I'm honored to give it a try and do my best. I am so pleased to be here to be able to represent Chauncey to you all. So I have known him for just about, I'd say 10 years now, which is about maybe 30% of Chauncey's legal career, about 80% of mine. Sorry to put those numbers before you. When I came across Chauncey's firm within Nathanson, when I was looking to branch out into appellate work after several years as a trial attorney in DCS. And Wood Nathanson is a small firm that, as you just heard, it has a really large impact. Not only do they win cases, but their cases shape and advance the practice of law in Massachusetts. Justice Lowy mentioned a couple of them, and I have them written down as well. If you ask any criminal practitioner about adjutant, Moore, Tucker, these are legal victories that are now codified into the rules of criminal practice. They are cases that attorneys use every day in court at every trial. Not, I think, just any firm, in my experience, can leave such a mark on the practice of law. And Chauncey's role in driving that kind of legal innovation and his hard work cannot be understated. And it's against this backdrop that I threw in my own application all those years ago to join this illustrious group, and I found it very intimidating, and what's worse, they hired me. So then I really had to show that I can handle it and I can keep up. And I've never told Chauncey this story, but my first case there, as an associate, with one of the partners, and I was assigned to work with him. And when you meet Chauncey, and you spend, even spending an hour with him, it's clear he's a very intense lawyer. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but he is meticulous in his work. He's tireless. He approaches every case with the same level of care and effort, maximal. And you can send him an email with, an idea, a few sentences of an idea or a short paragraph, and he will respond to you with a 3-page, single-spaced email citing areas all over the transcript, explaining the pros and cons of the idea you just submitted to him, and then end it with, what do you think? So, it's fair to say Chauncey taught me to do my research, and to be prepared, and it has served me well since then. So my first assignment, I was assigned to work with Chauncey on a new case, first degree murder case. And I emailed the only other partner there at the time, and suggested maybe it's a better fit for me if I work with him instead. And he very tactfully declined my request and said I'd be fine. And looking back on it now, I find it very funny to think that I was appropriate. It has been a real gift. Chauncey has been one of the best supervisors, mentors, and colleagues that I've had the privilege of working with, and I've been very privileged to work with some very, very fine supervisors and mentors. His work ethic is high because he takes his role as an advocate very seriously, and he expects as much from his associates, which is fair enough. But what really stood out to me after having moved on from Davidson is how Chauncey really empowered me to do the work that he was asking of me. He trusted me from the beginning, supported me very much, encouraged and aided in my professional development, and really just helped me become a better lawyer. And not just me. In a profession that is very much still dominated by men, I have to note that Chauncey and his firm have helped advance the professional careers of so many women, many of whom are in this room, and women of color. Perhaps it is second nature to him, living with such remarkable women as his brilliant wife Lisa, his two incredible daughters who are here, not here today. But as much as Chauncey has shined in this role as mentor, I think he's always really looking to improve himself as well as others. Chauncey is a very curious thinker, and I think we like to have people like that on the bench. The law, of course, is not static. Industry, technology, and the environment are all changing around us. But Chauncey brings not only his professionalism, his work ethic, and his skill to the judiciary, he brings this love of work like this. And although he has technically been in private practice for the last 3 decades, in reality, I think Chauncey has always really been a civil servant. Almost all of the firm's cases are federal and state indigent defense cases that have been since the time I worked there and before I worked there. Not to mention the very bright example he has set by logging. I have to mention some of the most pro bono hours of any attorney currently licensed in Massachusetts. But Chauncey's professional drive in a big law setting, and I'm pretty confident he could walk speak himself, it's fine now. But he doesn't do that. He's working in indigent defense and has devoted his career to that until now. In sum, I consider Chauncey a gem. I'm so thankful to have been able to work with him, and I would recommend you vote in favor of confirming him to the bench, and I will welcome any questions.
I have to tell you, the testimony was at least more fun than the least. I'm just saying.
Here, let's see.
It was. Don't worry, I'll let them know I said that. Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Devane?
Your testimony was heartfelt, and I very really appreciate that. It was professional and personal, and I think that. So how many years did you work with? 3 years. So, what, those 3 years, what if you being a better attorney? What did you learn?
I think I learned a lot about working on behalf of clients. Of course, that's can be a very difficult skill to learn as a lawyer. You have to live experience and learn something along the way. But really, also, Chauncey taught me appellate practice. I work now essentially in the role of a career clerk, but I never clerked after law school. I never served as a law clerk prior to that. So all of my appellate experience wasn't me competitive with the job I have now.
When you bring a lot to that position, the thing, the testimony really means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And that'll close the witnesses in favor of the nominee. We've done that. We're gonna call witnesses in opposition. Right there?
Yes.
And hearing none, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councilors and Chair Kennedy. Thank you for your time today, considering my nomination and all the time you've spent in preparation for this hearing. I'm honored and humbled by the confidence Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll have shown in me in nominating me to serve as an Associate Justice of the Appeals Court. Thank you to the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission and the Governor's Legal Office for their important work vetting judicial candidates. Thank you to Valerie McCarthy and her team for keeping this process running smoothly. Thank you also to Justice David Lowy and Merit Shi for being willing to speak on my behalf today. Finally, I'm delighted to share this day with my closest family and friends, including my father, Charles Wood, my stepmother, Marcus Bacon, my sister, Carolyn Wood, and my wife and partner, Lisa Kavanaugh, a career public defender who currently serves as the director of the CPCS Innocence Program. Lisa is a brilliant lawyer, a deeply kind, empathetic, and supportive spouse, and as a role model to our daughters, a spectacular parent. Alas, our daughters Carter and Isabel could not be here today. Carter, a junior at Abington College, is studying abroad in Spain. Isabel, a high school senior and the captain of the soccer team, is leading them in a must-win game to make the playoffs. It's been a highlight of our lives to get to raise two fierce, strong, and confident young women who are already deeply committed to making the world a better place. Sadly, the single greatest force in my life, my mother, Elizabeth Wood, did not live to see this day. On the day of my nomination, both my sister Carolyn and my wife Lisa separately reminded me that she would have been immensely proud of this moment. My parents raised my sister and me in rural Woodstock, Connecticut, a small town filled with apple orchards, dairy farms, and lots of very old houses. My mother was a person of fierce moral conviction. She argued passionately about the issues that mattered most to her, both at the dinner table and in town meetings. She also personally taught me how to write clear, analytical prose. I share two short stories about her that I think explain how I came to be here. First, she loved to tell the story of how I had decided I would be an appellate judge. When I was 7, we were watching Western Cronkite on the CBS Evening News, as one does. He explained that the Supreme Court had ordered President Nixon to release his private tapes discussing the Watergate scandal. I asked my mother how the Supreme Court could order the president to do something if the president was in charge. She said that in this instance, the Supreme Court had the last word. I said, well, I don't be in the Supreme Court. Well, this is a silly story. It delighted my mother, and she told it often. And looking back, I think it gave me an organizing principle for my life. Second, my mom's life had a dramatic arc. She grew up in desperate poverty. She was born in 1932, the height of the Depression, to poor parents in Dodge City, Kansas. She was bright and became the first person in her nuclear family to graduate from college, the College of Emporia in Kansas. From there, she moved east, securing prestigious jobs as a manuscript librarian at a famous museum in Delaware, where she met my father, staff librarian. After they married, they moved to Woodstock so that my father could launch a small business selling rare books. They bought a tired 18th century house on the town green and restored it to its original condition, complete with pumpkin-colored paint. My mother stopped working to raise me and my sister and help my father with the business. It was a success. My father still runs it today, nearly 60 years later. Together, my parents built what was, for my mother, prosperous and magical life far from her past. But then, in 1980, my parents divorced when my mother was 48 years old. My father provided an equitable financial settlement. Nevertheless, the divorce came as a terrible shock to my mother, a trauma from which she never recovered. When she tried to return to the workforce as a librarian, she was alarmed to find that she could not get a job, in part because she'd been out of the workforce for so long. She never regained the professional stature she had achieved in the 1960s and eventually succumbed to dementia. Reflecting on the arc of my mom's life, I thought often about the profound impact that severe emotional trauma can have on people. I've devoted my entire legal career to thinking about fighting for the most unpopular and powerless among us, a population rife with trauma. I think I got that idea from watching my mother's fierce idealism and her latest struggles. I've had the great honor of building a law practice devoted to defending individual human beings in extreme crisis. My clients reflect the remarkable diversity of modern America. While they tend to be poor people of color, I've represented people from across the socioeconomic spectrum, reflecting the complex racial and ethnic tapestry of 21st century Massachusetts. I served as a public defender and as a bar advocate in the district court, superior court, and appellate courts. I've also handled federal criminal appointments. My deep experience is in post-conviction challenges to state court murder convictions. I've had the privilege of building and working in a law firm that seeks to provide client-centered representation of the highest quality. This requires us to understand our clients' lives deeply. And to do that, I've tried to practice aggressive empathy virtually every day for nearly 30 years. I've also had the chance to think systemically about how we provide legal help to poor people charged with crimes in Massachusetts. I served on the board of directors of Suffolk Lawyers for Justice for 10 years. During that time, the board revised the application process in order to both diversify and improve the quality of the bar advocate panel. Some might ask how I would handle the switch from criminal defense lawyer to judge. I'm going to be frank. As has been stated, I'm an intense guy. I've been focused on the project of indigent criminal defense for many years. I brought energy and passion to that project every day. I understand that the job of a judge is different. I have to provide an unbiased hearing to all parties and make a fair and just written decision. I will bring the same energy and passion to this new project if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed. Most importantly, I understand that the appeals court is a collaborative body. I'm excited to tackle the important work of the appeals court together with the other remarkable justices on the court. Over the course of my career, I've learned to listen to and collaborate with others, including my clients, the SLJ Board of Directors, and my MACTL, Massachusetts Association of Criminal Defense Lawyer, Amicus Committee co-authors. I understand that when I listen to and learn from others, my work is better. I'm also aware there are many topics on the appeals court docket that will be new to me. I am confident that I can learn these topics because, first, I'm inherently curious, but also because I have constantly had to learn new material in my criminal practice, such as advances in science and technology. Finally, I am excited to draw on and learn from the remarkable breadth of knowledge and experience of my colleagues on the appeals court. If I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, I'm going to work hard to master the facts and the law of every case I hear in order to reach a fair and just decision in collaboration with my colleagues. Thank you for your attention, and I go ahead.
Thank you. Counselor DePaulo.
Thank you, Counselor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the time you spent talking with me. I enjoyed our conversation. As a former educator, I'm very interested in trauma-informed education in particular, but in our justice system as well. And I'm very apparent that you are sensitive to those needs as well. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Some that we touched on, some that we didn't. In your application, I always look to the question about what you think about how the discretion of the judge should be exercised. The closing sentence in your response said to consider the short and long-term consequences of depriving the defendant of liberty. And I realize, of course, your role on appeals court is different than a sentencing judge. But I'm wondering if you could expand upon what the long and short-term consequences of depriving a defendant of liberty, how that would, in your estimation, or how it should factor into sentencing decisions.
Thank you for that question, Councilor Powell. first of all, I want to reiterate what you just made. As an appeals court judge, it's very, very rare that I would actually be faced with that sort of issue. As other appellate court judges know better than me, well, the challenges are very narrow, constitutional challenges. Having said that, a brief answer to your question would be, I spend a lot of time with my clients in prison. Sometimes I've had clients die in prison. I've had clients get out of prison after 10, 20, 30 years in prison. And so I just have a lot of empirical and human experience with people and with their families. And I've come to see on a personal human level the consequences of incarcerating people, sometimes short-term consequences, sometimes long-term consequences. And that's a separate question from moral justification for the incarceration. It's simply a recognition of, I think, the fact that incarceration causes painful harm to not only the defendant, but the people around him or her.
Thank you, I appreciate hearing your perspective on that. Again, you spoke and we spoke about, you just kind of alluded to, and we spoke about folks who've been exonerated after serving long terms in incarceration. And we were able to speak briefly on what in the system allows that to happen, what improvements or tactics could be used as we move forward in that effort of continuing improvement in the system.
Our conversation yesterday was very enjoyable, and I gave you a very long answer.
It doesn't have to be that long today.
I'm sensitive infection. You somehow fit a third hearing in today, and I know nobody wants to hear that long answer. My very brief answer is that the innocence community has started to develop a large amount of data. And it's in very simple terms, we've started to have something to study and figure out what are the most common causes of wrongful convictions. And one thing we've all learned is that identifications are the leading cause of wrongful convictions. And this is not, there's no bad actor. This is important to understand. There's no bad actor in a misidentification. It's simply a mistake. And I think society did not understand how common that was until we started studying it. And society is the legal system is already self-correcting. Massachusetts has been a leader in adopting remedies. Chief Justice Gantz, rest his soul, was the leader in creating a commission to study this issue. And that commission issued a report, and Chief Justice Gantz was a leader in adopting that report quite aggressively and directing lower courts to change their practices in concrete ways, reflecting the science. So we have to follow the science. And the single simplest thing to say, how do we make things better in the future? Follow the science.
I was very impressed with everything I've heard about you and read about you and in our conversation. I'm excited about you joining the appeals court and the diversity of experiences that we have there. We have someone with a juvenile background potentially coming on soon. So I'm not going to take our time with any further questions. I look forward to supporting the nomination. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Council, Paul knows something we don't know, somebody else come on soon.
That's a jig, I know, I'm kidding. That's a jig.
Hello.
First off, I want to once again say thank you for coming out. We had a very long conversation that traversed many different topics, and I very much enjoyed it. And it went on so long that I hope you both enjoyed it equally.
I did.
I actually want to start. When we have nominees, we receive outreach in various forms. We get calls, and the person very well texts and sometimes emails. And I did receive an email on your behalf that is unusual in that it is a first for me. So I just want to read the email and the title is regarding nominated attorney for judge. Dear Government Council Chair, I am writing in regards of tomorrow's debrief. This is Amos Dawn from MCI Norfolk. who performed the spoken word poetry at the Cambodian Heritage Month that you attended. This is a bittersweet moment for me due to the fact that my attorney, Chauncey Wood, has been nominated to become an appeal judge. As much as I want to express what happened to me now, I'd love to share the sweetness of my attorney becoming potentially a judge. His last visit with me in September gave me hope when he stated, "The truth shall set you free." Today, with a reformed mind, I would like to highlight Chauncey Wood as a judge who believes the truth shall set one free. Our justice system has made a criminal justice reform action by nominating Chauncey Wood. Until next time you meet, I bid you well. Sincerely, things. That's first. I've never seen that. And it says, I think it says, on many levels, it says a lot. So Anna, I want to share that with you, but also.
This is appeal to the well.
Maybe it's some doubt. But it does, it says, it speaks to, it gives truth and light to the words in your application and the conversations we've had about the relationships that you have and the experiences you've had and the work that you've done. So I wanted to share that, 'cause
Thank you.
it really meant a lot to me to receive it and I really value that, but. Counselor DiPaolo alluded to my first area that I really wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, which is about your particular expertise and practice area as an additive to the appeals court, your thoughts around the diversity point of view that you'll be bringing to the court and what you think the strengths or possible challenges of that will be.
Thank you for that question. I think it's fair to say that the criminal defense bar has been incredibly supportive of me. And I want to actually quote Justice Francis Neely, that nobody gets here alone. And the criminal defense community is watching my nomination and lifting me up. And it's been important to that community because, as a simple matter of fact, there have not been any pure criminal defense lawyers on the appeals for SJC, with the exception of Justice D'Angelo, who was elevated to the bench, I believe, in 2002. And so that's a statistic that the criminal defense bar is aware of, and people remind me of that. And so I feel that I, am carrying a lot of weight. And I think that very simply, that's a valuable perspective. It's not an infallible perspective. It's not the point that defense lawyers are right and prosecutors are wrong. That's not the point. The point is that it's a perspective, and the more perspective, the better. And what I would say is the more diversity we have of all types on any collaborative body, the better.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. There's a couple of, it's an interesting time. I'm gonna get to my last, which also, touched on briefly in the prior, remarks. I would follow science, but my question had to do with, we talked a lot about cutting edge science and how as science evolves, so too does justice need to evolve in its own appreciation for the science, the applications of the science, and the outcomes associated with that greater knowledge. So I want to give you an opportunity to speak to what you hope or think your role in the appeals court can be in terms of work, processing this as science continues to produce new outputs, what impact you think that will have on human health?
Thank you very much. I want to give a short answer, and I want to be humble. So first of all, I'm going to turn to Chief Justice Blake and say I watched her confirmation hearing, and that reminded me in a really clear way how little I understand about the appeals court. I've never been a judge, and it's a collaborative body, and I want to be collaborative, but there are a lot of really smart people there, and I don't know what they know, and I know they know stuff I don't know. So I want to proceed slowly and cautiously. If I'm lucky enough to get to be in that group, I don't want to go in telling them this. I want to go in listening
So you can tell Brennan anything you want.
Not gonna tell anybody anything, first day, I'm gonna go one whole day without telling anybody. I promise. Anyway, I think that I agree with what you're saying. I've already articulated it. I think we have to follow the science. I guess the one case I would point to that I'm proud of on that point is Commonwealth v. Rentala. Justice Lowey mentioned, and very simply, one of the core lessons of Rentala is the scientific method, really basic high school math, science. The scientific method, what is science? It turns out really helpful, and the courts should pay attention to the scientific method. And when we do, when the legal system does that, I think it's better. I'm not suggesting that the appeals court needs to learn that from me. I think that, that's just something I've learned, and it's a perspective I'll bring.
Is there a limit to follow the science for you personally? Is there an area where the science and your own sense of the world collide or are mismatch? And if that is, yeah, how do you process that?
I guess I don't mean to be too pithy. I guess I can't think of an example where if the science is solid science, if there's general acceptance of principle, it's reliable, and that's the key, one of the key lodestars to me, in especially the criminal justice system, talking about depriving somebody of liberty, is reliability. You'll hear me mention that word over and over again. And good science produces reliable results, repeatable, reliable results. And so if it's good science and it produces a reliable result, a factual conclusion we can all agree on, then I will be hard pressed to reject that, whether that's in favor of guilt or against guilt.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna stop there. I just echo what I've already said, and I just very much appreciate being with you, and I look forward to future opportunities to discuss the nuances of our judicial system in the future.
Well, Mr. Chairman. Oh, sorry, Mr. Collins, traveling with that, that's nice.
Okay.
So my first, nice to meet you, my first 30 years in life, well, my first 30 years of career was a cop, police chief.
I heard it.
And for the last 10, I've done some criminal defense work and other things, but I've been a lawyer for like 32 years. And one of the things that we talked about this morning with another nominee, and you mentioned earlier, I think it was like Commonwealth versus Long. And I still have a lot of cop friends, of course, and chiefs, so as a police chief on every organization you can think about. And some of them will tell you it's had a chilling effect on how police do their jobs, and that cops aren't doing their jobs. And literally, I've seen a police chief show, pick up his phone and go, look at this show. This will show you 5 years ago, this guy had so many traffic stops, so many investigatory, suspicious people behind buildings. And let me show you what he's doing now. Zeros, all the way down. And it was redundant for a lot of officers, to be honest with you. And it was a concern for me. Because we want cops to do their jobs, keep us safe. In your experience, did you see that, how do you see Commonwealth longest played out? And do you think it's had a chilling effect on how our society is protected? Do you think it's a right decision?
Thank you for that question. So first of all, Justice Lowey mentioned law, not me, but, the former prosecutor.
Because you guys are
There's gotta be a comment from you.
So what I would say is that raises a really important question, and it's a completely fair question. I think that criminal appellate decisions, when they touch on how police officers do their job, and it's a hard job, especially when it's traffic sort of job out in the public. It's crucial that decisions give officers clear rules to follow, so that they can understand how to do their jobs properly. And that's a fair request that we hear from police officers, I think. And secondly, I think it's also true and that if police officers, based on reliable empirical evidence, violate important constitutional principles, that the courts need to do something about that too. That's my answer.
Have you seen this play out? Have you actually litigated Commonwealth versus Long cases? Some of your experience.
I have not actually litigated a Long claim since the Long decision myself personally. No.
Do you have any thoughts about how Post has rolled out for the Commonwealth and the effects on police officers? And how different police agencies reported certain officers violating certain rules and regulations, and others didn't report any. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, this is an area that I know the person to ask, and in my practice, I'm not trying to dodge, but in my practice, I've learned that my Rolodex is often more important than what I know in my head. And so the expert on that is an amazing CBCS lawyer named Rebecca James. And I recommend you reach out to her. She's the world's leading expert on the Post Commission. For everybody who doesn't know, that's tracking police officer misconduct. If they are accused of doing something bad, that's, I think, a verified complaint goes, I think, to the Post Commission, and so it's publicly available. I've never used the post data in a concrete way, in a concrete case, in a case we want to, no, I don't think I have. The officers I'm thinking of, the issues I think came up before post. So I've never used it, and I'm not really an expert on it, and I'm definitely not an expert on it. It's more specific, and good question you asked, what's the difference, is there a difference in the reporting standards and practices of various police departments? Because as you're alluding to, and I think this is really important, there are, I can't remember how many, something like 200 plus police departments in Massachusetts alone. And they all have a chief, and they all have their own different rules about how they follow the rules and regulations. And so we see a lot of variability. And that in turn creates a lot of different outcomes. And I guess my broad, big picture, uninformed opinion would be that we should try and be more uniform in our reporting departments.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that leads to the appeals, but it ever will, but
Yeah,
for sure, I know for a fact, and I've seen the results, where small departments with 30 police officers, say 10 of them acted inappropriately during their careers. Going back 25 years ago, like this guy ran a Red Sox player's plate, and he was given, a 1-day suspension for running a Red Sox player's plate, or they called in sick, and then you get cities with 300 officers, and they reported one person ever violated the law ever, or a rule and regulation. And literally, I've seen that play out, and it's so unfair. And I'm not sure how we fix that, and what we do about it. Maybe it's gonna reach a level someday, we can have a smart idea to fix that. So that everyone's treated equally, and we get rid of bad cops, and we keep good cops. But not everyone's to be subjected to having something that happened 25 years ago, being reported when others don't have it. You agree?
I think that's a fair argument. Absolutely.
So it looks like your resume is brilliant with criminal defense. Have you ever cheated in any other areas of the law, or like any civil experience?
I have done a bit of civil work. But I don't want to overstate it. You're absolutely right that the overwhelming majority of my work has been criminal defense. My very first firm as a paralegal is a criminal defense law firm. I have, and it's not important, I've done a handful of civil cases. So that is absolutely something I would need to learn about. And I've already started reading the slip opinions, not just on civil commercial litigation, but on all sorts of things that I don't know about. I didn't know. I had never even heard of the land court until 2 weeks ago. Anyway, I'm excited. The point though is high energy, like learning. So. And I think you're probably gonna answer this, and I don't. What percentage of judges on the appeal court do not have any judicial experience prior to being appointed to the appeals court? Chief Justice, my boss, future, if I'm lucky enough to get appointed, sitting in the room, I don't want to start speaking when she knows the actual answer. Chief, do you know the answer to that? 9 of 20.
Well, right now we have 22.
9 of 22. So it's almost half. Okay. Good, all right. Well, thank you for applying, and thank you for what you've done for the criminal justice system. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
This was so fast, the time is quick, and you got these people, I can't believe that you got the Chief Justice and you got Judge Lilly. I am just, I'm just so happy for you. Now, and you took a lot of time, and but you're not going to be your boss because she has had 3 Belgian markets. So, but I gotta tell you, I was impressed by, you were asked in your resume, what were the most 4 important qualities of a judge? And your first one was empathy. Yeah, it meant a lot to me, because that's what I look for. Now, we have to talk fast, because they voted to time us, so, you know, I have to ask you this. I have always, I think like most people think that DNA was the greatest thing that ever was found to really, you know, find out who the murderer was, but I mean, we see people, you know, a child that was killed 30 years ago, and we find that person just recently. I saw that. So I thought that was it. But you had a case, and I'd like you to tell us about that. And that was, this man was accused of getting into, a bedroom and raping a woman, and she identified him. And she found, later she found a pair of men's shorts in the room, and she turned them in. And they took what we had said previously, that when someone recognizes someone and says, that's the person, that oversees the DNA evidence. I mean, that is incredible. And I mean, he spent 16 years in prison. I mean, it just seems like, there's no justice in that. So tell us, how much does DNA affect a case? To me, it should be all over once you have the DNA and it's not that person.
Thank you for that question, Counselor. Folks can see this case that Counselor Mann is talking about on page 5 of mine. I don't want to mention the client's name because I just want to maintain its confidentiality. That's an ethical thing that I'd like to do. But it's true, you've raised a really important point, and to sort of keeping in mind time, it's a very important point that psychologists have recognized in ID cases. Very simply, there was a pair of men's shorts in the room, they had DNA on them. The victim showed them to the police took them to the crime lab. They did not match the defendant's DNA. She made an eyewitness identification, it's a stranger identification. So the jury was presented with her single witness stranger identification and this DNA that did not match, that she believed belonged to the assailants. It was not a great case. That's my opinion. But the jury voted to convict nevertheless. And so social scientists who have studied this have recognized this as a common phenomenon, that identification is so powerful to juries that they will overlook seemingly much more reliable science like DNA. And this is not an unusual thing that happens, it happens a lot. And so that's why it's even more important for our courts to do what the Gantz Commission ordered, and that is to allow defendants to bring into evidence expert witnesses who study identifications and the factors that make them unreliable, and explain to juries, give juries all the tools they can to understand the fallibility and unreliability of identifications.
Because you could live in a patent and have someone that you really have never met, but maybe that comes into your mind, he's the one. And it just seems like, is there going to be any change in that, like look at that evidence and allow a court to commit someone to prison, ignoring the DNA?
So in this case, I mean, depends on how you look at it, it was a happy ending. The court recognized our argument that it was reversible error to prevent the defense lawyer at trial from being permitted to introduce the testimony of an eyewitness ID expert. And so the court, recognizing that that was an error, 16 years later, reversed his conviction. So he did have to spend 16 years in prison, so that of course was a tragedy, but the court recognized the error. And the court recognized the error after the Gantz Commission explained essentially that the courts have been getting it wrong. So I think that there's a lot to be proud of in that horrible situation, that's an example of our courts admitting that they had misunderstood the science and getting it right eventually. And so I think the answer is yes, we can, if we follow the science, improve and be fair.
Right. I mean, the whole thing, I don't want to, belabor it, but it was dark, all of that.
Yes.
But trying aside, I'm so glad that you have mentioned Judge Gantz. And in my 25 years, in my experience, I have voted 3 times. And I never saw a man, so I don't cry, but he was just such a down-to-earth person. I could call him, I could go over and meet with him and speak with him for a half hour. He would give you all the time in the world. But what he did with that commission is going to be a legacy in heaven. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that. Now, I want to talk about one of my heroes too, is Judge Gazzarella. Now, you worked with him and you were supposed to have a committee to develop a timeframe on first-degree murders. Can you tell us about that?
So I served on that committee, I think, well, yeah, there were multiple justices who served on that committee, but that's right, Justice Gaziano was on the committee. The gist of it was that there had been a custom, I guess, that had developed in first degree murder cases that lawyers, for a variety of reasons, were allowing well, these cases, I want to, these cases were dragging on pre-direct appeal for a very long time. And the court was concerned that justice delayed at some point is justice denied. And so the court convened a commission, and I was appointed as a maximum representative to serve on the committee. And we engaged in a dialogue with stakeholders. And the upshot of that was that the defense bar, I think to the court's surprise, was happy to address this question and try to minimize delays. And there were several things that and it's been a few years since I had these discussions, so I don't remember it in great detail. But in a nutshell, defense lawyers spent a lot of time on the commission explaining to the courts the pinch points, the causes of delay that were not defense lawyers' fault. Sometimes defense lawyers were just not doing their job. That's true. But other times there was another problem: institutional resource limitations, and defense lawyers were trying to get things done they couldn't get done. And broadly speaking, the court, I think, was receptive, recognized that sometimes people need help and there are solutions to problems that if we focus our minds, we can solve these problems. And broadly, I think today, there's less delay in the pre-direct appeal litigation of new trial motions and first degree murder cases.
Now we have to talk fast over time. If you already heard this, tell me, okay? Because I ask people, I follow a lot of the courts, what's going on. And one case in the appeals court will always stay in my mind about the dog. And anyway.
I watched that confirmation hearing.
You can be honest, you can be honest. And this woman was on her lawn with her little dog. And this man came by with 2 dogs, one on a leash and a German Shepherd loose. The German Shepherd charged this little dog, tore her apart. Thank God that she survived. But it was a cost of $8,000 at the vet. So she went to court to get that justice. And the judge ruled that a dog is property. So she went to the appeals court. If you're on the appeals court, how would you judge?
I will follow the precedent, which I think is that it's not property. And also, we have a golden doodle. She's not a fighter, she's a lover, so I probably be fine.
Yeah, well, you know, that changed case law. And this is what I'm saying, that people don't understand what Judge Blake can do, the authority she will have as Chief Justice, and you on the appeals court. And I've got to tell you, I don't vote for everybody, and I vote for everyone in the appeals court. We have the best. And I'm so proud, and you're going to really enjoy working with those people and to have the best Chief Justice. I can't be happy leaving here knowing that I took these votes. So I thank you. But no, that was very interesting to me. And I thought the judge really used discretion to say it was property, or whether he could have used judge discretion to say, no, that's not property. You know, doesn't judge have that discretion?
I obviously don't know. I don't know the details of the case. And
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Right,
I'm sorry.
but no, you have a wonderful background. I just, I'm over the moon with what's happening to the appeals court to leave and know that we're good hands. And what a pleasure to meet you. And this is amazing, because the date was changed after we voted for it only a few days, and everyone came, and you've got these people oh, I received charges, I can't believe it. And so, it's just a privilege to meet you. And, hope you enjoyed your Belgian waffle. And anyway, I'm really looking forward to knowing when you're going in and really, it's a good day for me. I'm very happy.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, no.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. We had a lengthy conversation yesterday. You told me a lot. You seem to talk a lot faster yesterday. That's why I had. But,
People have told me that.
yeah, your presentation today is very compelling. I really like it. The council is a big supporter, and when your name comes before a council, probably, I'd be more than happy to support you.
Thank you very much, Nelson.
Council Dodd.
Thank you. I don't have questions, I will be honest. This is a natural ascension for you. I think you're a great fit. I think this is an exciting time, in the appeals court. And, you certainly have the experience that we need. And, thank you for applying. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Nelson.
Have you ever met any members of the appeals court?
I have.
You still want to be on it?
I do, and I learned something from the chief's hearing that 1/3 of them are new, relative 5 years or less, service, so I feel like there's. Gonna be, change in the year, maybe, I don't know if there's needs to be changed, but anyway, it sounds like an exciting time.
Making history.
Well, it will be with the new chief, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nothing against Jeff Tweed, because we know how much fun he was. We're gonna close the hearing now.
Thank you very much.